And thank you, Thomas. Thomas is doing an amazing job, too. Yay! Okay, so I am here to talk to you about Humanist Disaster Recovery Teams. I'm the development coordinator of this program for Foundation Beyond Belief. A lot of you might know me because Wolf Blitzer accosted me that time. But what a lot of people don't know about is a story that happened about a week later that drives me and is the reason this program exists. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you that story really quickly, and then we'll get into Humanist Disaster Recovery Teams. So, to set up the story, it's a week after the tornado. You know, we've spent the entire week trying to shovel everything to the curb. This is the last day. The bulldozers are coming. It's over. We have to get done anything that we can possibly get done because it's all over now. They're going to take everything to its final resting place, wherever it currently is. My stuff all still exists. It's just in a landfill somewhere. So the thing that I wanted to get done is I was going through my baby's belongings I had set aside. I had set aside specifically the clothing that I wanted to keep to make a baby quilt out of. I get all these plans and these ideas and these dreams in life, and I want to go and make this quilt, and when I'm 90 I'm going to like rub my face against it and remember what it was like to hold him and when I saw him in it and all these different things. I have this tactile way that I relate to the world. And so to let go of this last part was going to be the hardest, so I left it for the end. It was very difficult. So I'm in my home, going through this, and there's no way I was going to finish in time before the bulldozers came, and I knew it. And I was kind of freaking out because I wanted to get it done. So two women came up, and don't worry about it. Two women came up, and they said, hey, we're from the Baptist church, and, you know, do you need our help? And I was like, oh, yes, help me, please. I'm so glad you're here. And so they started to help me, and they were laying out the clothes so that I could quickly go through and take pictures, because I thought if I take these pictures, that'll just be something. That I felt like if I took them, I would feel okay internally and walk away doing the best I possibly could to feel okay. You know, it was just me trying to internalize what happened and get through it. And so, of course, not of course, but this is what happened. She said, so which church do you go to? Right? And I didn't want to drop an A-bomb on this lady, so I said, well, I don't go to church. And she said, you're raising this baby without Jesus? You guys, it wasn't funny. It was not funny at all. It was horrible. I have gone through therapy for a long time. Okay, I'm going to use my therapy right now. Oh, give me a second. Okay, I got to use it. I got to use it, right? Oh, hugs and love and everything. I got to think about the happy thoughts in life. Okay, I'm doing better. Right, this moment was a horrible, 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 horrible moment, because I'm sitting there thinking about my baby and letting go of all of his thoughts and all of this love and all these feelings I would have as a 90-year-old woman connecting to my baby. And she called me a terrible mother, right? And so what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do, so I just said, yep. You know, like, I certainly am. You know, I was like, okay. I mean, what's she going to do with that information? Are you raising the baby without Jesus? I just said I didn't go to church. Yes. And so she spent the next 30 minutes trying to convert me. She said that God had put her in my life to bring me back home to him, and he missed my son so much, and he just couldn't wait to envelop him in his love, and blah, 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 blah. Right? Like what? And the thing is, I couldn't tell this woman to, you know, to get the F out of my house like I wanted to. Deep down, I'm like, go away. But I couldn't, because those bulldozers are coming. They're coming now. And so I couldn't tell her to go away. And I was afraid of losing her help. I was terrified. Like, I don't know where the line is. Am I allowed to say anything now? I'm afraid of offending her. It's insane, right? And so instead, I was like, how do I get through this? I got to think about something else. Like, she's sitting there blah, blah, blahing all over me, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I've got to get through this moment. What do I think about? You know what? I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to volunteer for a humanist, relief program. I'm going to go and make sure that no one is doing this from our community to someone else. I'm going to make sure that that doesn't happen. I need to find these people tonight, and if they're on the ground here and they're doing this, I need to stop them now. You know, so, right, so that's what got me through. I wasn't listening to her anymore, whatever, I got my pictures taken, huzzah, you know, good. Thanks, lady. You know, and then at the very end, when she was about to leave, she said, I hope I've inspired you. And I said, you have. Right? Certainly did. So I got on the computer that night and started to look for it, and I couldn't find anything. I was like, am I putting the wrong search words into Google or something? Like, is it maybe it's not humanist, maybe it's atheist, maybe it's secular. Like, what is it? I'm just looking for the wrong thing. And then after a while, I was just like, maybe I should just accept that maybe it doesn't exist and start emailing people. So I emailed a bunch of people, and they said, no, it doesn't exist. And I was like, oh, how is this possible? I mean, as an atheist, I love to think about what the world would look like without religion. Don't you? It's like all puppies, kittens, and rainbows in my brain. It's just happy thoughts and, ooh, wouldn't that be wonderful? But you know what? Where are the volunteers? Like, where are the volunteers after disasters? We don't have that. That is like monopolized by religion at this point. And so, you know, that I couldn't let it go. That's when I started, I was just like, this isn't the thought that I can let go. You know, like I need this to happen. I need to be a part of this. I have to, because I don't know, there was a gut-wrenching, like if I don't get involved in this, then I'm failing all of life. And so that's whenever I, you know, eventually got on track to developing HDR Teams. Let's see if we can pull it up now that we're into the presentation. It takes a second, there's a delay. Let's see, HDM. Any moment now. It took a second earlier. Well, that didn't work as well last time. Sorry. Is that what they did? Magic was unplug and plug it back in, is what I've been told. This is magical. Okay. Did that work this time? No signal.
Okay, this is VG, not HDMI. We need to switch to
All right. He did it. It was him. It was you. Thank you, Vic. Okay, thanks. All right. So, so the first thing that I needed to understand was non-theistic disaster recovery. Because you know what? Non-theistic disaster recovery does exist. It does exist. It's not an organization that's ready to go out. They're not, you know, as soon as a disaster happens, they enact their program and then they go to it. But it doesn't just not exist yet. And it has a different look, both inside and outside of the community. I'm going to go over both of those, starting with outside of the community, because the way it looks outside of our community and inside of our community is incredibly different. So let's start with Joe Klein, Time Magazine. This is a month after the Moore, Oklahoma tornado. This had the cover of Time Magazine. So it's kind of indicative of what it looks like from outside of us. And let's go over this really fast. There was an occupying army of relief workers led by local first responders, exhausted but still humping it a week after the storm. Church groups from all over the country. Funny how you don't see organized groups of secular humanists giving out hot meals. I have to read that with a mocking tone. Is it possible to read this without a mocking tone? Funny hell yeah. Funny hell yeah. Funny hell yeah. He's mocking us. And that, you know, it's completely wrong to do this, because what he's doing is he's saying, well, they have a way to get there and they just don't go, or they have the infrastructure in place and they don't use it. No, it's nothing like that. He's comparing us to organizations that have been around for decades. He's comparing us to religions that have been around for thousands of years and have been, you know, coming together, creating their communities, and can organize in this way. It's like we are a 5-year-old and they're a teenager who's in a foot race with us, who's like, you're not as fast as I am, 5-year-old. You know, like, it's ridiculous. Like, if you see a teenager get in a foot race and is seriously saying, 5-year-old, you're not as fast as me, you know there's something wrong with that teenager. That's not okay. So this is what it looked like from outside of our community, and he's both right and wrong. He's correct that there isn't a national program like there are for religions and stuff like that. What he's wrong about is about organized groups of secular humanists. There were organized groups of secular humanists, and I'm going to go ahead and go over what we do have. So within the community, first of all, we have disorganized individual volunteering. This is actually terrible, by the way. This is called spontaneous volunteering. It is very frowned upon by the emergency management community, because every single time you have a volunteer who comes in, they need food, water, shelter, all this stuff to be in place. They try to account for it, but it's chaos and terrible. But we did that, there's no avenue. If you're looking for an avenue, if you're like me and you're on Google and you're like, I need to find this organization, it doesn't exist, I still want to help. They run off. And you know, it's something, it's not what you're supposed to be doing, but it's all we have. The next is silent non-theists working through theistic organizations. I hear this one all the time. I have people tell me, I couldn't, you know, be a part of an organization, but I knew that that was important, so I just didn't say who I was. And the thing about that is you're not visible. People don't know you're there. But you are there. We are there. A lot of us are there. And then finally, local organizations. And so for more, there were organized groups of secular humanists out there. Free OK was out there, AOK was out there, different groups from Oklahoma where they were responding in their backyard were there. And this is very important. You have to have this. The reason is they're the only ones who can be involved in the first response. The first 72 hours is only taken care of by the local community. That's not from volunteers who are coming in. So those local organizations are very important. But it's also in carrying it through long-term recovery. Right now, New Orleans is still recovering from Katrina. And I guarantee you it's not because people are going from St. Louis down to New Orleans. Maybe there's a couple of people, it's just not in herds or anything like that. That's New Orleans taking care of themselves. And so it's these local organizations who are going to carry it through the years, and it's very important for them to become involved. And we do have that. But we don't have a national program in place. We don't have anything that's set up that whenever a disaster happens tomorrow somewhere, we're ready to go. And so, as I was thinking about this, somebody put me in touch with Foundation Beyond Belief. And I was looking at their stuff and I was so excited about the types of programs that they offered. One of them is Beyond Belief Network. In St. Louis, you guys have a Beyond Belief Network affiliate. It's Ethical Society of St. Louis. Yay! But what Beyond Belief Network is right now, there's 113 teams in more than 30 states. They've donated over 60,000 hours in their local communities so far in only 2 years. So what happens here is that what the teams do is they submit their hours of what they're doing in their local communities, so you can have a broad picture of what's going on by humanists in their backyard in those local communities throughout the country in one single place. And so if you donate 15 hours between all of your group in 1 week, that's 15 out of 500. And so people can say 500 hours were donated. And as more and more people join Beyond Belief Network and are submitting their hours, it's a more and more clear picture of what it looks like and the type of aid that we're giving to our communities. And the next was crisis response. This was, we collect donations for secular organizations working on the ground after the disaster. This is not a disaster recovery program. This is something like a food bank, where it doesn't matter who you are, you can work for them and you can come get your food, it doesn't matter. And so I saw this and I was like, they have a focus on disasters and a focus on volunteers. Disaster volunteers! I was so happy. I was like, I have to accost this man, So I got in touch with Dale McGowan, and he said that Noel George, who by the way just replaced him as executive director of Foundation Beyond Belief, had previously come to him with this idea of where he should take the organization. So instead of me trying to do some elevator pitch to get him, he just said, oh, let me just put you in touch with Noel. I was like, yes, I'll give you all of my time. Yes, so, and over the last 2 years, we've been developing humanist disaster recovery teams. Yay! Okay. So I would be completely remiss here if I didn't bring up Samantha Montano. Samantha Montano, my heart beats for this woman. I love her so much, and we talk about it. We talk about how much we love each other and how we couldn't function in life if we weren't helping. And so she is getting her PhD in emergency management. And so all of the evidence and all of the science and the FEMA regulations and all of those things are embodied by our program because of Samantha Montano. Yay, hooray. So Humanist Disaster Recovery Teams, though, our mission is to provide recovering communities with disaster volunteers trained in a humanistic approach. The way that we're going to do this is through an evidence-based training integrated with humanistic values. Now, these are two separate things. There's the evidence-based training, and that's the FEMA rules and the regulations and everything that Samantha Montano embodies. And then there's the humanistic values, and that's the new thing. That's the thing that hasn't been tried before. That's the thing that we're bringing that hasn't been done yet. Other organizations have used humanistic values, and there's evidence that this is a good idea, but we haven't done it yet. I'm going to go over these separately because of this fact, though. So starting with the evidence-based approach, there's response and there's recovery. These are two separate things, and as a survivor, response, recovery, relief, these words all mean the exact same thing to me at the time, but I've been schooled now by Samantha Montano, who slaps our wrists and tells us when we're wrong. And so there is not only a difference, but there's an evidence-based approach to each. So I'm going to start with response. In response, you have the evacuation. Let's say that there was an earthquake. This is getting people away from buildings to a place of substantial safety. It's to make sure debris doesn't fall on them and they're no longer at risk of bodily injury. The next is securing resources. The moment that a disaster occurs, that area is completely cut off. I mean, we're not all farmers. We go to the grocery store. The grocery store has been destroyed. There are trucks that come in and bring our food. There are no roads. This is an immediate thing that has to be taken care of as soon as the disaster happens. You have to make sure that you have resources obtained and that people can get to them. The next is search and rescue. I think we all know what that is, but it's important to note that until search and rescue is complete, the response phase is not over. Medical intervention, if you have a laceration, you're not going to wait a week for volunteers to show up. This is an immediate need, and that's the thing about response, is these are all immediate needs. These have to be taken care of. They can't wait. And then finally, debris removal to clear paths for aid. Now that is the aid. That's recovery. It's as soon as the local community is finished, and I mentioned it earlier, the local communities are expected to sustain themselves for 72 hours while taking care of these immediate needs, and then they say, we're ready for volunteers. And if you go before that moment, there's a problem, unless you're involved in response, and you're only involved in response if you know you're involved in response. If you don't know, the answer is no. So, we'll go over one case study, just so you can see what it looks like when things go completely wrong. So 9/11, there were 40,000 unsolicited volunteers, 40,000 people, not New Yorkers, from outside of New York, who flocked to New York instantaneously because they see the pictures and they're like, I must go there now, which is a human response. You want to help. That's a normal human response. But disasters don't work the way normal. You're not used to this. This is something that never happens. This is something that we're not prepared for. We don't understand yet that we don't even understand what's going on here. Here's something that goes on. It overwhelms volunteer management. Those people who are sitting there and they're thinking about all these immediate needs, suddenly have all these people around them who are in the way, who don't know what they're doing. And that's very overwhelming because they're trying to talk to them while they're trying to focus on meeting these immediate needs. Next is survivors are in need of trained workers, specifically people who know exactly what they're doing, who could understand whether or not they should go into that kind of collapsed building, whether or not it's safe for them. Those are the kind of people that they're in need of at that time. If you're not a trained worker, then you're not supposed to be there during the response phase. Resource depletion, we went over that a little bit ago, but the thing is, whenever you have all of these resources taken away, you're trying to provide them for survivors. When you have 40,000 people come in, that's food, water, shelter. Every single one needs food, water, shelter, on top of the survivors who now don't have the resources that they used to have from the place that has been destroyed. And then next is valuable time is devoted to creating tasks. It's very hard to ignore somebody who's like, I'm here to help, I want to help you. Instead of saying, go away, like they don't do that. Instead, they're just like, do this, and then they keep trying to do what they need to be doing. And that's not a good thing. More people's lives are saved whenever you can devote your time to the immediate needs and the needs of survival. And then finally, medical care for those injuring themselves. If you're not trained, you don't know you're not supposed to go into that building, the building collapses, now your arm is broken. It's because you weren't aware of what you were supposed to do, you don't know the proper safety protocols, you don't know what you're supposed to be doing. And often, unsolicited volunteers get injured more than anybody else. You know, other than the survivors, definitely, you know, I mean, who have already gone through the experience. But the medical community has already been overwhelmed by the tragedy, and this is just compounding all of the things that are going wrong in the situation at the time. Right? Oh no. This is why whenever I say disorganized volunteering, don't do that, this is why. You have to wait. So, the do's and don'ts in response. I put this in here just so if there's a response, if you had a tornado that happened in Oklahoma and you have some drive in you that says, I'm available right now and I should go to Oklahoma, here are the do's and don'ts of what you should be doing whenever there's something outside of your local community. So the first is don't spontaneously volunteer. We've gone over that. The problem is you need to wait until the infrastructure is built. And then to ensure that the system is prepared to receive you, you have to be a part of the system. That's why you need to go with an organization. That's why we're building this, is because you have to have an avenue in place that's part of the already constructed emergency management system. It has to follow all of the guidelines. You know, you can take yourself, you can throw yourself with shovels and some work gloves and throw yourself into the situation, but it's not ideal. So next is do not send in-kind donations. People all the time are like, I have 30 shirts, they need clothes now, and they just send it off immediately. You have to wait. You can't do that. And the reasons are, it doesn't match the immediate needs of the environment. What you're doing is you're creating a lot of stuff. And whenever you create a lot of stuff, it takes hours to comb through the stuff to find anything you might actually need. And it's also distracts from the important work. Response phase, immediate, 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 immediate. If you have any thought in your mind that doesn't seem like an immediate need, you wait. It's not during the response phase. And then finally, do send monetary donations. Do send your money, do that. That's a great idea. The amount of good that can be done from sending your dollars to people who are involved in response, specifically in response the way they're supposed to be, is outstanding. So first, it gives them the fastest access to what they need, and it reduces man hours. You reduce the man hours, you save more lives. You have more time to focus on what you need to be doing. Right? Okay, so what can you do if it happens in your backyard? Let's say that there is a tornado and it goes through St. Louis. I mean, let's not say that, but just postulate this happens. So what can you do? Because if you are in the local community, that means you are a part of it. That is your neighbor. You're not supposed to not go in to help your neighbor, although you need to know when you should and shouldn't go into that destroyed building. So CERT classes, these are free. These are free. And you know, they're given by FEMA, they're in your local communities. If you look into it, you could have a meetup where you go and you take this training, and then whenever there's a response to be involved in, you will know what you need to know. You will know when you look at the collapsed building and it has, you know, it's collapsed in a specific way, you can't go in there. You have to find somebody trained. And then you will also know where to go to find someone trained who will be able to help if there's somebody in there. It's a wonderful thing to do. I've taken them, and it's amazing information. And then Red Cross training and certification, you know, first aid, CPR. You never know when you'll need this. Like maybe this might even help you in the case that you're not in a first response, or it could be the first response to that one guy who got injured. These are the kinds of things that would help you be prepared in case something happens, and you absolutely do not know when it will be you. It was me one time. And I never knew that that would happen. So this is response. HDR Teams is not going to be involved in response, other than getting the word out there that local organizations need to get involved in CERT training. The thing about CERT training is it'll teach you how to be involved in what kind of things will happen in your local area. Like in Seattle, I get trained on earthquakes. You guys aren't going to get trained on earthquakes? That's ridiculous. But right, it's very localized, and so HDR won't be involved in that. We will say get involved in CERT training, but we will be involved in recovery. Yay. Okay, So there are 3 different types of phases that go into recovery. There's restore, rebuild, and reshape. I'm going to go over each of these so that you can understand where HDR Teams falls into them. First of all, restore is the cleanup and provision of temporary housing, restoration of public service. So we're not going to be involved in restoration of public services clearly, but we will be involved in cleanup and provision of temporary housing. The next is rebuild, and that's going to be major repair work takes place, people return to homes, school and work resume. A lot of times we're going to be involved in this. For instance, if there's a tornado, like I said before, a week after the storm, they're getting ready to bulldoze it. We're not really, if it takes us 2 weeks before we're prepared to deploy, then more than likely we're going to be taking part in the rebuild portion of recovery. And so then there is reshape. We are definitely not going to be involved in this. This is improved infrastructure and better disaster planning. But something that you can do if you're part of the local community is to get involved and say as loud as you can how important this is, because the government really, really likes to not take part in this. In Oklahoma, for instance, 7 children died in a school, and Mary Fallon wants to not put shelters in schools. That's what she wants to not do. Because your children need to go into a place that, I don't know, maybe coin flip, it doesn't, will it happen again? Don't know. It could happen though. And so this improved infrastructure is something that, you might have to fight on. And it's important to fight. So, obstacles. So this, I'm going to go over a few obstacles that every single disaster relief organization has to go through, every single one of these, every single time. We go through it just like every single other organization. The first is the need for more volunteers. So the thing is, I get an email every single time that there's a disaster of any kind, no matter the scope. I get an email asking if we're involved. And at this point, I just say, we haven't launched yet. We're going to at the end of the year. And so, no, we're not going to be. But eventually, I'll have to talk about, it's dependent upon the size and the scope and the need for more volunteers. Because it might be able to be taken care of by the local community. There's the city, the county, the state, the region, the nation. It goes out and out and out, and it'll depend on that whether or not we're going to be involved in a specific disaster. The next is skills-based volunteering. After there's a disaster, there's all these roles, all these different things. Maybe they need a carpenter. Maybe they need somebody who has experience with a chainsaw. Maybe they need somebody who has no experience at all and who can just take direction, for gutting homes or for shoveling or anything like that. What we've done is we've created a database, and whenever you fill out your application for HDR Teams, you fill out exactly what your skill level are so that we can match you with these positions. So if you have carpentry work, we can say, they need a carpenter. Perfect, we have one. Or if, more people don't have any experience at all, but there are more positions that have no experience necessary. So that's perfect, right? So we can match people up exactly with what they need to be doing. The next is time-sensitive coordination. The thing is, whenever you have people coming from the outside to come and assist, you don't want them showing up a week after everybody else, correct? Yeah, there's a lot of things that all have to happen at the exact same moment. Here is a list. First is the date and duration of deployment. Everybody has to be on the same page for that and committed to the exact same thing. Then there's transportation. That's not only for people trying to get from their homes to the housing location where they'll be staying, but also from the housing location to the work site for every single volunteer. And then supplies, it'll depend on what you're doing. Let's say that you're in the rebuild phase, then you might need, face masks and, work gloves. All these different things have to be in place for the specific work that you're doing. And then food, water, shelter. That's always. And then training. Now, training is one that a lot of disaster organizations just kick to the curb and say, well, it's too much work and we're just not going to do it. Because it's much easier to just grab a shovel and throw it in there and just say, well, we'll just figure it out as we go. It's much easier to do that. But for all the following reasons, you should not. There's a lot of evidence out there. First, that it's beneficial for volunteers to have this type of training. It decreases mental health impacts. It increases confidence in fellow volunteers. And specifically, program and disaster-specific training works out best. And so, for all of this evidence, we're not going to ignore that. We're an evidence-based program. We're not just going to kick it to the curb like it typically is done. So that's why it's taken so long, because we've been developing these trainings. So then partnership. Now this is an interesting one. Partnership. Because I just said there's all these jobs. Like there's magic jobs that have been created by the disaster. Like the disaster's like, I need a carpenter. That doesn't happen. And so you need somebody who is developed to a point that they can develop these kind of work orders. And we're not that far along. That takes a very long time to become. A couple, maybe 5 years, 10 years. You know, it takes years to become somebody who can go in, generate these work orders, and hound out these jobs. So we need a partner. And what's the problem? All the faith-based organizations and everything, out of the 60 different national organizations who are active after disaster, about 57 of them are religious organizations. But guess what? There's a few who aren't. What are they doing? Who are these people, right? Who are they? Well, they work with companies. Google, for instance, will say, I'm a giant organization and I want to be able to help in disasters too, and so I want to send my employees. And so they work with these types of partners who have developed specifically to work with companies. We've reached out to these people. We've told them who we are. We told them, you know, why we do what we do and what we plan to do. And they're very excited to be able to work with us. So we have partners. I can't announce who any of them are until we get a disaster happens, and then we officially partner, and then we announce it. But they're very much on board, very excited to be the person who first gets to take HDR Teams, which is cute. I really like that. But yes, so we have partners. So we do have a bit of a unique challenge, though. All of those obstacles are the ones that every single, if you're going to make a disaster, recovery organization, you're going to run into those problems. We have a bit of a unique one, though, right? We're going to be the first national non-theistic program in a landscape of faith-based organizations, volunteers, and survivors. So that'll be interesting, right? That'll be very interesting. I'm interested to know what happens. So what do we do with that, you know? So that's when our humanist service values come into play. Whenever people are like, well, what do you need to do there? Why do you need to go? Why do you need to be a part of this? Can't you just be like those companies and just not say anything? Well, we believe that our humanist service values are extremely important. And honestly, if like religious organizations want to take the humanist service thing and just strip it off and use these, I'll be so happy. Like just use the thoughts. It's fine. It's fine. They are humanist values, but like just use them. It's fine. So the way we like to think about it is survivor first. And this is, I'm going to explain what that means to us. It's not don't eat and give your food to a survivor. It's not don't meet your immediate needs or think about yourself in any way whatsoever. This is about understanding the environment that you're walking into. This is understanding that this is their world. So here's the thing. Earlier, I'm sitting there describing my quilt, and you know, I have this connection and tactile, all this stuff. That's me saying what the world is for me. So this experience that people are walking into is my world. This is my life. You know, this is everything I've ever known. This is like my past. It was my and now it was my future that's been destroyed. Other people walk into this circumstance and they're like, giant pile of crap, right? You don't know what anything means to anybody else. You look at it and you're just like, wow, that's a giant pile of crap. It means nothing to you. And understanding that that is not what it looks like to the survivor is very important. So the very first thing is the experience belongs to the survivor. You have to understand in your mind that you're walking into their world. The moment that you understand you're walking into their world, and it's only their world, that's the first step in understanding what you have to do to be able to help them. But how do you help them? So I'm going to go over a few things. I'll go over 3 different survivors and how they reacted to their world. First of all, there's me. I have tactile, I have this stuff, you know, like I'm connected. I had a ring. I want to be buried with that ring. I was like, oh, find the ring. And, you know, if I'm cremated, stick that thing in the jar, because that thing's part of me. You know, I'm connected to things in that way, or at least in my mind I am. And so I was very adamant that they found the ring. They did find the ring, by the way. They found it after like 2 hours of searching through insulation. Thank you. But they did find it. My husband, on the other hand, he does not care about stuff at all. He's like some kind of Zen master. But he was losing his mind about paperwork. He's like, don't touch the papers. Oh, they touched the papers have moved. Ah! He told them all to stick them on the stack. But they were not doing that. And so he was losing his brain. You know, he just couldn't handle the fact that they were not paying attention to the words he said about the papers. Then there's my neighbor, who didn't go back to his house at all. He said, bulldoze it to the ground, I'm done. I don't want to see my family's life look like that. I don't want to process what that looks like. I just want to have it live on happily in my memory and disappear and not see this part. I don't want to do that. I'll go fill out whatever paperwork I have to. I don't care. You know, those are all so different. So how do we help survivors if every single survivor is an individual? So the first thing we have to do is listen to them. They're going to tell you what they need. I was very vocal. I have to find this ring. They tell you what they need to feel okay. They know what it is, so much so that it's just going to pour out of them. Like they can't not tell you what they need because it's so hard to get through it that their mind settles on, if I just do X, Y, and Z, I'll walk okay and feel okay, you know? And then you have to take them seriously. You have to. Because if you don't, it's going to be traumatic. Very traumatic. It's already a traumatic experience, but you can make it more traumatic. That woman who came into my life and tried to put her world all over me, like, that was very traumatizing. Like, I've gone to therapy, and that's one of those moments that I focus on the most. Like, it was so painful to have someone just come in and try to put themselves all over me. And we can't do that to other people as well. We have to listen to what they're saying and take them seriously. And the way that you have to view yourself in this situation is that you are their extra hands. You know, these thoughts are coming to tell them, you know, like, where was your God now? That's just a terrible thing to do to somebody at that moment. They're trying to get through it the best they can. You're the hands who are there to help them because they don't have enough hands to be able to do everything that they need to do. So that's what we're bringing. It's not scary. I don't think that's scary. Everyone gets to stay who they are. Everyone's an individual. Everyone's protected and they're listened to, and we're going to help them in the way in which they say that they need us to help. Now, maybe some people don't want to work with us. Those are the words that are coming out of their mouth, and they're like, I can't work with them. Why would we? No, we'll get you somebody. No, we're not going to force you to work with us. That's terrible. No, we'll listen to your needs. Is that what you need? Okay. We'll find you who you need. We'll help you find them. Where are they? I'll help you find them. So going over our trainings, this is what we have developed over the last year. The first is going to be Introduction to HDR Teams. As I said before, program and disaster specific are the most effective and the best ones. So we have developed our program specific training. The next one is HDR team member training. That's the logistical, that's the time sensitive coordination. This is how we all get to the same place at the same time with the food, water, all the things that we need. And the final one is Introduction to Disaster. This goes over all the different specific disasters because they're different. And when you walk into them, they're going to feel different. You'll have different needs. You'll have different expectations. It'll look different. The type of work will be different. And our disaster training goes over each of those so that you're prepared for the environment that you're going to be involved in. So this year, you can expect our first deployment. Yay! Right now, our trainings are in the final editing phase, and then whenever that's complete, we have our code of conduct. It's going through the lawyer. As soon as that's approved, we're ready, and then we're waiting for a disaster. That sounds, I mean, honestly, I would not, like, if no disaster happened, I'd be so happy. I'd be like, universe, you're the best, you know? If they never happen again, like, wouldn't that be amazing? But that's not realistic, and it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen this year, we already have decided that we'll go ahead and help in a rebuild phase that's already taking place. There were floods this year. There's things going on. And we'll go ahead and we'll go with one that to test our systems, test how everything works out, make sure that nothing breaks. It'll be a small one at first, and then our second one will be larger. Let's see, as we continue to grow, there are 3 things that we've put in place so that we can continue to grow based on evidence and the experiences that our survivors are having in the field. The first is logistics. As we continue to grow, we're going to be putting more logistics in place so that we can eventually, the dream is that we become that partner, that we're the ones generating these jobs. And we would love to be able to train teams, such as an SSA group, to be involved with us, where an SSA group would say, I'm SSA from LA, and we will come for a week, and then we will give them their jobs and have them interact with us in that manner. And then the next is, SSA, Secular Student Alliance. Woo! Or any other group, it doesn't have to be SSA. Whatever group you're involved in, we want to get to a point where we can train you as an organization to be able to interact with us in that manner where we are handing you the jobs, where you are doing the thing we are currently doing now with our partner, we would be your partner. So then there's field reports. We're going to require that everybody carry a field journal. If anything goes wrong in the field, you have to write it down, and then at night there are going to be a specific period of reflection where we go over our field journals and we try to brainstorm what are the possible solutions here, what solution did we come up with, and how can we plan for the future to make it better, what gaps were there in the training, or what from the trainings worked. And then finally, surveys. After you get back, as well as 6 months after deployment, we're going to give you a survey to find out how your experience was, how we can continue to develop the program based upon your experience. So, how to get involved. You can register for HDR Teams at foundationbeyondbelief.org/HDR Teams. I suggest everyone do this, because you know what? If you can't make it, or if it's not near you and you're not needed, it's not a big, you can say, I'm not going. But what if, let's say that something happened near St. Louis. Let's say that something happened in a state just nearby, and you were able to go, and you did have that availability. Then we'll be able to match you up with those positions according to your skill level, and then you'll be able to be involved. And then if you have any ideas, questions, or comments, you can submit them at hdrteams@foundationbeyondbelief.org. And I'm Rebecca Vitsmun, Development Coordinator. Yay. Do we have time for questions? Hi. Do we have time? Any time for questions?
Let's get two questions.
Two. Vic. He's got his hand up the fastest.
Who was that?
Vic.
Vic? The young man with the white hat?
So I'm curious if
You play basketball?
did you or Foundation Beyond Belief happen to reach out directly to Joel Klein for a response? And did he ever have any kind of follow-up, resembling an apology or retraction?
I'll just send him a bunch of pictures from the field once we go. I'll tag him on Twitter in every single one. No, I haven't reached out to him. He can figure it out on his own.
I'm curious if did you ever reach out to somebody else who also said some kind of disturbing stuff about you specifically? Glenn Beck, did you ever?
No. Yeah, okay. Glenn Beck, he said that I was indicative that forces of spiritual darkness were at play. Spiritual darkness! It's so, can't you tell from my presentation I'm so mean?
One more question.
One more.
You pick him. Where?
Wait, we got this guy who's right here. Yes.
Yeah, right up here.
That's you, it's you.
No, the one standing up.
So the question is, if you have a company, you work for a company that you think might be a useful and unique partner, how does the company get involved?
Get involved with HDR Teams specifically, or get involved with our partners?
With the HDR teams?
That's going to take a couple of years before we're able to be involved in that way. But if you sign up for HDR Teams now, you will get that information as soon as it's available. Absolutely. Every single person who is signed up for HDR Teams will get all of our announcements as we continue to grow, as things continue to change, as we develop more trainings, because we have several trainings that are already started on as we continue to grow. They're just not available yet. These are the 3 they're going to start with.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Rebecca Vitsmun.